what you decide is important in your life and to prioritize and implement it is to decide it's important. You see? We do what we think is important to do in life. Actually. We all do what we think is important. You see? Like, you know, if you have a plane to catch, and, you know, to get to a very important meeting in Hong Kong, you prioritize that, right? You make sure that you get up in time and that you figure out that, you know, the travel time to the airport so that you don't miss the plane. If you think it's important enough, you'll do it. I used to have a dentist in Los Angeles. He was kind of like the dentist to the stars. You know, he was a real classy dentist guy. You could only get an appointment with him, like, you know, if you a year in advance or something like that. So you make your appointment a year. You are damn sure that you made that appointment. You know, you prioritized it. You didn't like space out. You know, it took you a year to get in to see the guy, so you were there on time. You know, right? So we do what we think is important to do. So why is it that we don't think that the spiritual life is important? So when we talk about the prioritizing, you know, number one should be your spiritual development. And this is what and realizing that and then really working hard for it. This is the first part of the class. So these are verses, we'll start with verses from the 7th chapter of the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. I see many people in here who have gone through that whole text with me on retreat. So it'll be a reminder for some of you, okay? The Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, classic text of Mahayana Buddhism. This is the beginning of the 7th chapter. There's a whole chapter out of 10 chapters of this, you know, great, great spiritual classic. A whole chapter on what they call virya in Sanskrit. Virya. Joyful effort. Virya is a Sanskrit word that's related to English words like virile or virulent, like you have a virulent strain of a disease or something. It means strong. It means powerful. It means like getting your back behind it. You know that expression? Get your back behind it. Get stoked also. You know, because it's not just like, it's not just working hard. It's working hard happily, which is the best way to work hard. Because then you really are interested in it, you see? We do a lot of hard work for stuff that we're really not that happy about. Many, many people put up with all kinds of difficulties for a job that they're really not that, you know, stoked about, right? Put up with the traffic, get up early in the morning, work long hours. I mean, we're not incapable of working hard. But if we really like doing something, we will work hard at it joyfully. And harder, you could say even, right? So it's another part of like getting the priorities in order is to feel good about your spiritual efforts, you see. To feel like stoked about like maybe cultivating a good meditation practice or coming to the yoga studio on a regular basis or working hard to become a more honest, a more, you know, kind of moral person, you know. So it's not just what we think is important, but also what we really want that will help us work hard to get it. So this is, you know, a little motivational talk, right? How to get motivated to do what should be our number one priority in life. Learn how to be a better person. Develop ourselves spiritually. So these are the first verses. Once you have cultivated patience, that's because it's coming right after the 6th chapter, which is all about patience or tolerance. Once you have cultivated patience, you should then begin the practice of joyful effort, virya. For awakening depends on making effort. Anyone unclear on that? Like, awakening here means, you know, freedom, perfect happiness, you know, enlightenment, whatever name you have for the goal of a spiritual life, which is, by the way, the goal of all our lives. It doesn't matter what you call it, but we all have the same goal, ultimately, see? Some people think that, well, no, my goal is to make, you know, $1 million, or my goal is to become a CEO at the company. But underneath all of the apparent goals, the lesser goals, is the same goal. I want to be happy. We all want to be happy. And happiness, real happiness means satisfaction, contentment, right? In other words, you could say real happiness involves not wanting anymore, right? Not being dissatisfied all the time. So we all have that same goal. Every being has exactly the same two kinds of motivations in life. And that's not just human beings, but insects, animals, all kinds of living beings. They just want to be happy and avoid pain. And none of us are different. All the same on that, the great equality. We all just want to be happy and avoid pain. So once you've cultivated patience, you should then begin the practice of joyful effort. For awakening depends on making effort. You can't just wait around for the awakening fairy to come. And bop you on the head with her little crystal wand and say, don't worry don't do anything, you don't have to do anything, I'll just take care of everything for you, see. Many of us are waiting for that fairy, aren't we? Just, think somehow I deserve it, but I don't have to work for it. So, we're talking about being unbusy, but that doesn't mean inactive. Okay? Unbusy doesn't mean you just are a slug, especially when it comes to the spiritual life. You see, you have to make efforts. But joyful effort means without the stress, without the anxiety, without the competitiveness. So oftentimes that creeps into a spiritual life, doesn't it? In a yoga studio, they're looking over at somebody else and seeing how well they're doing, and when noticing how you're much better than they are, all that judgment and all of that. And not just yoga, by the way. All forms of Dharma are like this, all forms of spiritual life. So without any of that competitiveness or stress or anxiety, to work hard, to make efforts. Awakening depends on making efforts. Just as nothing moves without wind, without effort, there is no merit making. Okay? So first verse of a whole chapter is saying, look, you got to make some effort. You got to work hard. If you're going to make progress spiritually in your life, you have to work hard. But not without the kind of stress, anxiety, and so forth that characterize a busy life. Can you work hard happily without that kind of stress and anxiety? And so hopefully we'll be able to convey ways to do that. Next verse. What is joyful effort? This is the second verse. So define virya for me. It is being happy about doing good things. Being happy about making efforts to improve yourself and to improve the lives of other people around you also. Being happy about it. The obstacles to it. Now, so now they come to it. How come we don't prioritize and get really motivated behind our spiritual life? In the same way that we do, for example, around our professional lives. Making all kinds of sacrifices, making all kinds of efforts in our professional lives. How come we can't bring even a fraction of that into our spiritual lives? Imagine how much progress we'd make spiritually if you brought even 20% of the effort that you put into your professional lives. Or your education, years and years and years of training and homework and exams and all like that. If we put just a fraction of that kind of effort into our spiritual lives, we make an enormous progress really quickly. So why not? What are the obstacles to it? Laziness, number 1. Attachment to contemptible things, number 2. And depression or low self-esteem, number 3. So we'll talk about laziness in a minute. I'll just cover the other 2 quickly. Attachment to contemptible things, means getting diverted all the time. Getting diverted all the time. And we have lots of diversions in our lives nowadays, don't we? Lots of opportunity for diversion. Endlessly surfing the net, endlessly watching, TV, going to the movies, entertaining ourselves. There's nothing wrong with it in moderation. Right? It's important to have a certain amount of, kind of downtime and entertainment in your lives. But entertainment now has become kind of an end in and of itself. There was a book written a long time ago now, 30 years ago. Very, very interesting book by a social scientist called Entertaining Ourselves to Death. where he, predicted, he really nailed it on the head, that our whole culture now has become sort of defined by entertainment. Everything's just a form of entertainment. The news is a form of entertainment. Politics is a form of entertainment. It's kind of sad, but it still is. It's just like, what's going to keep me amused all the time? And the internet is kind of like one big possibility for keeping ourselves amused all the time. So we get diverted. We get diverted from what's important. So that's the second of the three obstacles to joyful effort in a spiritual life. And then the third one is a huge problem nowadays: depression and low self-esteem. So 1500 years ago or something, Shantideva identified this as a big problem when it comes to the prioritizing and the energizing of your spiritual life. Is this kind of like feeling that you're no good. And I'll just tell you, it's not about depression. These classes are not about depression, but I'll tell you the antidote to that in the text. I didn't include it in the reading. The antidote to low self-esteem and depression is to remember what they call your Buddha nature. Remember your capability. We all have infinite capability. And no one has more of that capability than anyone else. We all have it, and we all have it equally. We all have the potential to be fully awakened, to be fully enlightened. Okay? And you're supposed to kind of like, you're supposed to remember that and realize that the little person, the little self that you're feeling so bad about isn't the real you, actually. The real you lies at a deeper level. Okay? So we all have tendencies this way towards low self-esteem. I read recently something like 1 in 10 Americans now are on some form of antidepressants. It's a huge problem worldwide. So to remember our true nature, what we call our true nature, or your Buddha nature, or your true self, or something like that, that's the spiritual antidote to depression. Here's another one, okay, just practical, okay? Depression is a form of obsession about the self. Obsession about your person, your personal self, your individual self. Anyone who's been depressed knows that when you're depressed, all you can think about is yourself and how bad you feel, right? So a very obvious kind of antidote to depression, and one that I learned actually originally from my psychiatrist. I was hospitalized for depression, and I went to a psychiatrist 3 or 4 times a week for 6 months or something. And he taught me this long ago, long before I was interested in the spiritual life. Think about somebody other than yourself. I remember, after 6 months of therapy, I said, he said to me one day when I came in for the session, he says, "How long are you going to come here?" And I said, "Well, I don't know, until you fix me, what do you mean?" And he said, I was a young man and beginning my career, wasn't making that much money, living in New York City, cost of living was very high. He said, "Well, cost a lot of money to come here." I said, "Yeah, I know." And he says, "Yeah, and what about the effects on your family? Think about your family. And how you're diverting funds, and you're diverting time, and you're kind of a mess moping around the house. Think about somebody other than yourself." It's a very, very good advice. So anyway, those are 2 out of the 3. 2 out of the 3 obstacles to virya, to joyful effort. Low self-esteem and getting diverted all the time by things that don't really matter that much. Then he says in the next verse, laziness arises due to inactivity, as we all know, right? That's kind of the obvious form of laziness. It's just this sitting around on the couch all the time. Yeah, I'll get to the meditation class later. Yeah, kind of like, I'm tired right now. I don't feel like it. Had a long day. An appetite for pleasure. There's an English word for this, I don't know if you all know it. Hedonism. Hedonism means just thinking the whole purpose in life is to have pleasure all the time. And first of all, that's a fool's game, because you'll never be able to do it. You'll never be able to just keep yourself pleasured all the time. Partly because there is no pleasure without pain. Okay? Pleasure is meaningless without its opposite. So, life is filled with these kinds of dualities. So this kind of like appetite for pleasure is a reason why we're lazy. We just want to have a good time. I don't want to like really work for much. That kind of feeling. Sleepiness and a craving for lying around, brought about by what? Complacency regarding the suffering inherent in cyclical existence. Complacency regarding the fact that this life is filled with problems. And if you don't like prepare yourself for problems, when problems come, you have no resources. And the preparation for problems is a spiritual preparation. Okay? It's very interesting. We have been kind of teaching for a long time and have students who have been around for years. 10 years, they've heard these kinds of classes over and over and over again. And it's just really interesting, like, when problems arise in their lives, it's like they never heard anything. It's like, like they never heard 10 years of teaching. Like, how could this have happened to me? My husband divorced me. How could this have happened to me? Well, this is samsara. This is the way it is in life. There are going to be problems in life. And I think sometimes people get the wrong idea about the purpose of a spiritual life. The purpose of a spiritual life is not to never have any problems. To never have any external challenges, to never have people die on you, to never have health problems, to never lose your job. You see, that's not the purpose of it. Nobody can guarantee you that. See, this is the way it is in our world. This is the way it is in samsara. And the complacency can come equally from just not thinking about it, not wanting to think about it, or from thinking that the spiritual life will give you some kind of immunity from that. Those are two ways of talking about complacency, you see? Just not thinking, oh, this couldn't happen to me, or too bad that it happened to me. Or thinking that, well, if I'm a good meditator, or if I do yoga 4 times a week, or if I really am a kind of a nice person in my life, that nothing bad will ever happen to me. Nothing unwanted will ever happen to me. That's naive at best. Okay? The purpose of a spiritual life is to prepare you for those kinds of eventualities, so you don't just go, kaput, so you don't go to pieces. If you don't have that kind of spiritual preparation, then you have no resources. You are at the mercy of the vicissitudes of life, the ups and downs of life. And so one way to think about the spiritual life is to learn how to have an even keel. You know that word, that expression, an even keel, so that you're not torpedoed by whatever life has around the corner for you. Next kind of disaster. We're all subject to this. Nobody is immune from it. So laziness here, he says, stems from a complacency about this kind of thing. And it's very easy to develop a complacency about this, about the realities of life, especially living the kind of lives that most of us are living. We're living in a kind of a bubble. Designer samsara, sometimes they call it. Designer samsara. Where, you have plenty to eat, you've got 300 channels on the TV, you've got nice new cars that you're driving around in a beautiful, glitzy city, 8 zillion kinds of cuisines to choose from. And you think, wow, it's pretty good. Why would I have to, discipline myself to, live a spiritual life? Things are going well. Until they don't. See, until they don't. And it's not, it's not if there's going to be disaster, when? We all have disasters in our lives. And nobody's immune from it. Nobody's immune from death. Nobody's immune from sickness. Nobody's immune from old age. Nobody's immune from these kinds of things. Nobody's immune from losing your bank account. You see, that could happen. All kinds of things can, and it doesn't just happen to other people. So that's a little kind of sermon about complacency. We're all liable to it. We all are. As long as things are going well, we can lull ourselves into this kind of complacency, and then postpone the priorities in life. I'll get to it later. Right now things are good. Why should I waste my time going to yoga classes or meditating or stuff? I don't need it. See, until you do. And if you haven't practiced, if you haven't prioritized it, if you haven't put your joyful effort behind it, then you have no resources. When the disaster happens, you have no resources. So the next section Cindy will do is, how to help really put some jet fuel behind that kind of motivation, and to get over the laziness, get over the complacency.
I think, did you talk about how laziness and busyness are the same thing?
I didn't.
No, okay. So I think we talked about that a little bit yesterday though, because as Marut said, one of the obstacles to having joyful effort is laziness. And because this is again Unbusy talk, we remind ourselves of what we talked about yesterday about the fact that busyness and laziness are actually the same thing.
It's a form of laziness.
Yeah.
Busyness is a form of it. Because it doesn't, it again is a kind of an obstacle for us when it comes to prioritization.
Yeah.
If we keep busy all the time, then we don't stop to think about, well, what is really important? What should I really be, kind of throwing my relatively limited resources of time and energy and so forth? What should I be throwing that towards? Just keep busy so you don't have to think.
Right, and so this next section of keeping your priorities straight, I just wanted to stroll out quickly on another way that we keep ourselves busy. Because I think this class is called organising activities or something like that.
No.
Getting organised.
Yeah, getting organised.
And so I just wanted to stall out for a brief moment on multitasking, which is another way that we stay busy, right? Is that we multitask. And the funny thing about multitasking is that you think you're being really efficient, but studies show that you're being very inefficient. So multitasking is basically doing too many things at once and not doing anything properly. So, you go into the kitchen to make lunch. You start cooking something for lunch, and it's going to take a while for the onions to brown, and so you think, oh, I'll also fold the laundry. So you run into the laundry and you start folding the laundry, and then you run back to do the onions, and you realise, oh my God, there's something on the floor. I better go and get the vacuum cleaner, and I start doing that. The onions are burning. Oh my God, the onions are burning. Try and make the lunch, and then you realise you haven't set the table, and so you run back to the laundry, and you open the cupboard, and all the laundry falls on your head because you haven't put it away properly. This is the multitask. You think that you're doing everything at once, but actually nothing's being done properly, right? Nothing's folded properly, nothing's put away properly, nothing's cooked properly, the table's not set, your whole life is messy, unorganised, and you've forgotten the things that you have done, you haven't done them properly, and so on. So we think that we're being really efficient, but actually multitasking is very inefficient. So it's the idea that we're enriching our lives, but there's an underlying sort of poverty to it. Trying to fill it up with busyness, trying to fill it up with accomplishment, but actually you're not accomplishing anything really. And that's not to say, that you sit there and you just cook and you just stand there staring at the pan. You know what I mean? We're being realistic about it, Just doing the onions. But, or I've put the rice cooker on and I'm just going to stand there for 20 minutes doing anything else, I'm being realistic. But recognising the underlying poverty and desperation behind your multitasking. And I wanted to read you this quote from Clifford Nash, a professor of communication at Stanford University. He says, "The research is almost unanimous, which is very rare in social science. And it says that people who chronically multitask show an enormous range of deficits. They're basically terrible at all sorts of cognitive tasks including multitasking. So if you're overly multitasking, you're actually really bad even at multitasking, because your attention is dispersed. Like I said, you can't filter out irrelevancy. You untrain yourself in how to concentrate. You know, you untrain yourself. So people who multitask can't filter out irrelevancy, can't manage a working memory, are chronically distracted, are unable to have awareness of others. This is really interesting, I think. So that would be when you're having lunch with your friend and she's telling you something and you're like, yeah, oh, yeah, you know. So you're multitasking in the sense of having lunch with your friend and checking your phone at the same time, which is a quality of somebody who doesn't have any emotional intelligence, by the way. That you don't have the ability to concentrate on other people and listen to them. That you've got half your mind on the phone means that you have also untrained yourself how to be emotionally engaging and intelligent towards other people, you know? So multitasking makes us sort of socially inept. It doesn't sound very good, does it? You can't keep on task, and in fact, some people, they say that it can lower your IQ to something of an 8-year-old child. So the next time you're writing your boss an email during a meeting, remember that your cognitive capacity is being diminished to the point that you might as well let an 8-year-old write it for you.
I read recently that somebody did a study that proved that people high on marijuana actually had more attention than most people who were multitasking. Well, I mean, you know, if you've ever been high on marijuana, you can see how that's possible. We're not recommending it. Especially not in Singapore.
So yeah, multitasking, especially with others present, indicates low self-awareness and social awareness. Low self-awareness and social awareness. So you don't have good awareness about yourself and your own ability to be present, and you don't have awareness on others and what they need, which is the two foundations of living a good spiritual life, right? Having good self-awareness and other awareness. Basically, recognizing the interconnection of self and others is one of your main anchors of living a good life. And multitasking completely destroys those two anchors. And I think with the phone too, one of the things that we can be careful of is the fact that those of us on social media, and I'm not telling people to get off social media. I'm on social media, you know, I'm not saying that, but to have some awareness around what it is that you're doing, particularly around if you have the continual need to frame your experience through photographing it and putting it online, to just think about what that does to your perception of your life. That you're continually framing your experience. So you're having a good moment and immediately you need to frame it, you know, box it in and upload it and have affirmation that it was a good moment, a memorable moment, you know. You know that saying, if a tree falls in the woods and nobody hears it, did it make a sound? If you have an amazing experience and you don't photograph it, did it happen? We kind of got into this thing of like, I have to photograph everything, I have to remember everything, I have to frame everything. So it's really interesting that it's you're framing something in and boxing it in and trying to present it, packaging it out, marketing it, you know, marketing your experiences. And it's nice to detox from that need to continually frame your experience through capturing it, photographing it and getting immediate feedback on it. I think that's a healthy way to live, to not be too addicted to that feedback and that need to frame. Because also, you know, talking about your self-awareness and other awareness, how does that change the good moment? Did you stop the good moment by photographing it? Did the people having the good moment with you stop their good moment by you photographing them, you know? So had to have a little bit more awareness about how that need to photograph and frame and present everything online, how that changes your experience of reality. I think, you know that there's also a saying like, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas? And Mick Jagger says, what happens in Vegas now ends up on Instagram 10 minutes later. So keep some things staying in Vegas, you know? Doesn't have to all get out there immediately. Okay, so getting your priorities straight. So leave it to Shanti Deva, says you're not having joyful effort in your life because you're lazy and you have an attraction to distracting things and you have low self-esteem. And so of course Shanti Deva says, what are you doing? You're dying. If this was your last day to live, your priorities would be quite clear, wouldn't they? Or if you knew you had a week to live, your priorities would get quite clear. So Shanti Deva sort of brings that into the present to say, well, you are dying. Not if I was dying, you are dying. We're all, as soon as we're born, we start dying. Isn't that interesting? As soon as we're born, we start dying. And so this should be a galvanizing force for us. Recognizing death is not morbid. It's actually a way to get very clear on our priorities and have that be something that really energizes us for doing what needs to be done. Getting out of complacency, as Marut said. The antidote. Today there may be health, enjoyment and no problems, but life is fleeting and deceptive and the body is on loan. Your body is a rental and you have to return it to the costume shop at some point, And it's impermanent. Life is impermanent, your body is impermanent, your relationships are impermanent and so on. So getting clear. Why is life deceptive? What's deceptive about life? I was thinking that what's deceptive is that we think that things that don't matter that much matter a lot, and that we think that, and things that do matter, we don't think matter that much. So that's why life's deceptive, because things that don't really matter that much, we think they matter a lot, like replying to emails, going on Facebook, all of the ways we've been talking about distracting ourselves from our Dharma. They actually don't matter that much. Or all of the churning in the mind about what he said to me last week or what he said to me 20 years ago, actually for some of us, right? Still churning on that argument of what they said to me 20 years ago, and if I ever see them again, no, I haven't seen them in 20 years, but if I do, I know exactly what I'm going to say because I've rehearsed it over and over again. It doesn't matter. It's not important now, So we think that the things that don't really matter that much, we put great importance on them, we put so much energy into them. And things that do matter, like the fact that we're dying, we might not think about all day. So we think about what they said to me 20 years ago all day, but we don't think about the fact that life is impermanent all day. So that's why life's deceptive. We don't prioritise what's important. Body's on loan. And we'll go through the death awareness meditation very quickly in a second. That is why the Blessed One said that a human birth is very hard to obtain, as rare as a turtle who just happens to stick its neck into the opening of a yolk floating in the great sea. This is a very famous metaphor that you see in the Buddhist tradition about how precious it is to receive the life that we did, this precious human life, with all the resources and opportunities given to us on a platter. All of our health, our prosperity, our cognitive abilities to study the Dharma, our body's all okay, we can meditate, we can do walking meditation, sitting meditation, we can do yoga. We have texts from all spiritual traditions available on the internet. It's crazy how blessed we are with this life, and it's so rare to find. If you believe in reincarnation, and you can think about how many lives you've lived this life already, you could listen to Bob Thurman recently. He's been going off on this sort of thing about how strange it is that people couldn't say that definitely there's no rebirth, because he said like, no one can come back from nothingness and say, no, there's definitely no rebirth. Anyway. No one comes back from nothingness to say, no, I was right, there's nothing when you die. So, but anyway, the point is that we should consider it like it's as rare as if there's a turtle that's swimming in the vast ocean and there's one little golden hoop in the middle of the ocean, and that turtle just manages to come up. Every 100 years only it comes up, and as it comes up it manages to stick its head through that little gold hoop in the whole vastness of the ocean. That's how rare your life is. And isn't that a nice way to think of your life? That we wake up grateful every morning to say, oh my God, I woke up again, my health is here, my cognitive capabilities are still here, I have food, loved ones, you know, waking up grateful. And then you also realize that it's so rare to find and time is running out. So you wake up grateful, recognizing your leisure and fortune, your spiritual resources and opportunities. So amazing that I have the capability to really follow my Sanatana Dharma this lifetime. There's so many people that want to and they can't. There are so many people that want to and they can't, I tell you. You know, a lot of people want to live a spiritual life and they cannot do it for all kinds of reasons. We managed to make it here today. You know, whenever we make it to a teaching, it's insane. Whenever we make it to the meditation cushion, it's amazing, you know. It's as rare as the turtle sticking its head through that, you know, so we should feel grateful for that. And then we realize, but time's running out. So then we can do the depth awareness meditation. And so having obtained a momentary opportunity like this, because part of leisure and fortune is saying it's so rare to find, but time is running out. It's for a limited time only. Were I not to use it to practice virtue, there would be no greater betrayal, no greater foolishness. So you can think about all those people that do wish to live a spiritual life, that do wish to practice, looking at you, you know, watching Big Brother on television and saying, oh my God, I can't believe they're not doing something, you know, that's a benefit. I'd be doing something of benefit if I had their life. I think it would be no greater betrayal towards them, you know, that we were given that and we didn't use it. So we'll do the brief death awareness meditation. Or? Yeah.
You want to do it as a meditation or you want to just talk about it?
How's everyone feeling? Tired? Alive?
Get up and stretch yourself.
Well,
You want to do a
yeah.
meditation?
If you can lead it, you lead it. So, yeah. So everybody just get up for a second.